Exodus 27. Meet us there. We're going to get through chapter 27 this morning. We'll get through a small portion of chapter 28. We normally try to cover an entire chapter at a time. We'll cover chapter 27, but then we'll only get a portion of chapter 28. And next time we're together, we will get the rest of it. Exodus 27, I am going to start by passing this stuff around. This stuff is really cool. Grab a hold of that. That is wool. Give me just a second. I don't know how far this cord will go. Grab that one right there. Grab that. That is wool that was just recently taken from a sheep. And the reason I brought it in is because we have, now this is funny, listen to this. We've been talking about dyed animal skins, dyed animal hair, as we're looking at the making of the planning of the tabernacle. But what's funny is we haven't looked at lamb's wool yet. We've seen goat's hair dyed or ram's hair dyed. The reason I brought that in is because I want you to see that how the lamb's wool is dyed. I mean, look how vibrant that is. And you guys can pass that around after you're done looking at it. Pass that around. I think it was the gold one that's here working its way up the center. I think that one was dyed with turmeric, I think. The red one, I do not remember, but it was all natural dyes. It was like dyed with, there were lots of different ingredients, but then sometimes they used flowers, different things to dye all of that. So it just gives you a little glimpse into what may, and we'll talk today about threads and yarns and some of those different things as we get into chapter 28. But that gives you just a general idea of what they might have done with some of that, the ram skins or the goat skins or the hair and the different things. They could have done some incredible things, and in fact, that's what God was asking them to do, or commanding them to do, instructing them to do. Do it this way, dye it this color, and we'll see some more of that today. Exodus 27, we are still in this section of Exodus where all of the planning for the tabernacle is taking place. This is a difficult part. This is a difficult section, and the reason is because we can get bogged down or even bored with the things that we're learning, all of this planning. Have any of you in here ever painted your own room? Anybody ever painted their own room? Okay, so some of you have a clue, right? Before the painting begins, what must first take place? The color you want? Good. What else? Got to tape everything. Got to get some plastic going, covering the floors. You got to take maybe some of the, like if you have, of course you have light switches in your room. Maybe take off some of the plates so that you don't paint those. It's all of the preparation work. So when it's time to repaint your room, you may get super excited. We just recently painted the inside of our house. And again, it's, okay, we're choosing the colors and, it's going to look so cool here and we're going to do this and do that and then we'll do these other things. And then begins the preparation work. And for a lot of us, that's where we kind of like, I'm done with this painting thing. Because we've got the colors, we've got the brushes, we've got the rollers, we've got the pans or the trays, we've got all the tools, the materials, I got my painting clothes on, and then it's okay, hurry up and tape every single door jamb, or around every single window, or the light switches, or tape plastic to the floor, or drop cloth, or whatever you're doing, and it's all the preparation work. And that excitement, that stirring that maybe you had, and you thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do one wall purple, and I'm going to do one wall, this color and that color. All of a sudden, all of that excitement begins to just nosedive. Because, man, I didn't realize we were going to have 52 days of preparation. Like, why can't we just start painting? And then those of you that are painted, once you got all the prep work done, then you start painting, and it's like, then it goes quick. Bam! And it's like, really? Like, I just spent like a half a day painting, but I had to prep for 3, 4, 5 days before? Like, what is the deal? Preparation oftentimes is the hardest part of the job. And right now we're in this section of Exodus where we're learning about all of the preparation. God is prepping them. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to build. This is what you're going to put together. Today we're going to see some clothing. Or we're going to start to talk about clothing anyways. We won't get through all of the clothing. But we're seeing all of these pieces be put together. And that's where we can tend to get bogged down. So I've got some videos to share with you. I brought some of that wool so that you can check that out, get an idea, hopefully help to keep you a little bit more engaged. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this morning. We are praying that you would help us, please, to learn all that you want us to learn through these chapters. That we would be attentive to your word. That last night's movie wouldn't be more important than this morning's message. Help us, Father, that we would give as much attention to your word as we do other things in our lives. That we would learn from these lessons, going through some of these difficult chapters of just hearing instructions and do this and do that and build these things. But help us to see the beauty in all of it. It's something that you are constructing, and we want to be excited about it. So help us, please. This morning, we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, we're going to do things a little bit different if you're used to being here. And first thing that we're going to look at is constructing the altar. Verse 1, you shall make an altar of acacia wood, 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide. Cubit was about the distance of your forearm. The altar shall be square, and its height shall be 3 cubits. You shall make its horns on its 4 corners. Its horns shall be of one piece with it, and you shall overlay it with bronze. They're making an altar. It's to be covered in bronze, or you're going to see a video in a moment. It's going to call it brass. That would have been the metal that symbolizes judgment. Okay? Also, you shall make its pans to receive its ashes, and its shovels, and its basins, and its forks, and its fire pans. You shall make all its utensils of bronze. You shall make a grate for it, a network of bronze, and on the network you shall make 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners. You shall put it under the rim of the altar beneath, that the network may be midway up the altar. You shall make poles for the altar, poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with bronze. The poles shall be put in the rings, and the poles shall be on the 2 sides of the altar to bear it. You shall make it hollow with boards, as it was shown you on the mountain, so shall they make it. Now we're going to get a video in just a moment that's going to kind of visualize all of this for you, make it a little bit easier to understand, because I read through that and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What is it supposed to look like? So we'll get a visual. But let me say this. This altar that's being built right now, that's being planned, as someone was walking into the court of the tabernacle. So you have the tabernacle, the place of meeting, and then you have the court around it. We'll get to that in just a moment too. But as you walk into the court of the tabernacle, the outside court, you go through the curtain. The very first thing that you're going to see, as you're looking straight at it, you can see the tabernacle way back there. Well, it's not that far back there, but you're going to see it back there. And then in front of that, you're going to see, it's like, what is that? There's some kind of dish there. We haven't gotten to that yet. And then in front of that would be the altar. So as you walk in, that's going to be the first thing that you see. And that altar is immediately, the smell of sacrifice is going to be in the air. Immediately you are going to be faced with, you're going to get the idea that as I'm walking toward this tent of meeting, sacrifice. That is what God wanted. That is how he designed it. The idea is that as you and I are coming to meet with God, sacrifice is involved. We've got to be careful, don't we? In my prayer, and I've mentioned this before, but in my prayer I prayed for those that were up late last night. I was up a little too late last night. I'm feeling okay right now because I'm pumped up and I'm kind of like, I'm excited to teach. But a little bit later I'm going to be just going down hard. Because I stayed up a little too late last night. What was I doing? Watching a movie. Okay? And it wasn't that late, but normally on Saturday nights I try to get to bed a little bit earlier. Okay? So normally, I go to the nightclubs on Friday nights. That way on Saturday I can go to sleep early, right? I don't go to nightclubs, okay? But sacrifice, for me, it means this. It means that on Saturday nights, I've got to get myself to bed a little bit early. There's a whole routine that I've got to go through in order to get myself to bed, some preparation for Sunday mornings. But I go through that whole routine. I try to start that in the early evening, late afternoon, early evening. Now, if my family and I are taking off somewhere and we're going to go hang out at, wherever, I don't know, and I think, okay, it's a Saturday, I'm going to be back a little late, then what I'll do is I'll actually take Saturday morning and do all of my prep so that if I'm getting home late, I can just pretty much, take my shower, jump in bed, I'm done, ready to go. It's sacrifice. It means that I've got to spend extra time doing that, preparing for you guys, because I love the heck out of you. And I've got to have some kind of Bible study here for you. And I've got to come dressed in something half decent. Can't come in my PJs, okay? I'm not going to Walmart, coming to teach. And so I've got to make sure that I am prepped, I'm ready to go. That involves some sacrifice. But it may mean some sacrifice on your part too. Saturday nights, hanging out. People want to watch movies. Like, let's watch a movie. All right. Doesn't matter that it's 1 in the morning. Let's just start a brand new movie. It's okay that it's 2 hours long. But you may have to sacrifice if meeting with God is something serious to you. You may have to spend that extra time. And as the people would walk into the court, they see the altar, and they would know immediately sacrifice. There's something about meeting with God that involves sacrifice. Now, we've got a video. Let's show, you able to, oh, you know what? I wonder if she just put it in there. Bam, let's try it. You guys ready? Drum roll, please. There it is. Ellie is awesome.
And thou shalt make an altar of shittim wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad. The altar shall be 4 square, and the height thereof shall be 3 cubits. And thou shalt make the horns of it upon the 4 corners thereof. His horns shall be of the same, and thou shalt overlay it with brass. And thou shalt make his pans to receive his ashes, and his shovels, and his basins, and his flesh hooks, and his fire pans. All the vessels thereof thou shalt make of brass. And thou shalt make for it a grate of network of brass, and upon the net shalt thou make 4 brazen rings in the 4 corners thereof. And thou shalt put it under the compass of the altar beneath, that the net may be even to the midst of the altar. And thou shalt make staves for the altar, staves of shittim wood, and overlay them with brass. And the staves shall be put into the rings, and the staves shall be upon the 2 sides of the altar, to bear it. Hollow with boards shalt thou make it, as it was showed thee in the mount, so shall they make it.
All right, yes?
The netting that was in the middle of it?
Yes.
Wouldn't that break because of the fire?
Because of the fire. That's why they would have covered it in all of that brass, to keep it from breaking apart, or, yeah. Is that what you meant? Like it's constantly burning? Yeah, so evidently whatever, he said brass, but bronze. Evidently that would have kept it from falling apart, I guess. We'll try it. Let's build one and try it. Just kidding. Let's not do that. You might want to put me on it. Constructing the altar. Okay, the next thing that we're going to look at, beginning at verse 9 down to 19, is the court of the tabernacle. We're going to look at 2 different things. We're going to look at the court of the tabernacle, and then we will also see the care of the lampstand in a little bit. I'll put that up here. But then we'll get another video to explain these things. But try your best to follow along here. Verse 9. You shall also make the court of the tabernacle for the south side. There shall be hangings for the court made of fine woven linen, 100 cubits long for one side. Now, let me just briefly tell you what he's talking about is... picture a fence around the tabernacle, and he said that it's made of fine woven linen. So this is not like a hard, fast wall. It's not like the border wall between us and Mexico. This is like a curtain made out of woven linen. Okay, 100 cubits long for one side. Verse 10. And its 20 pillars and their 20 sockets shall be bronze. The hooks of the pillars and their bands shall be silver. Likewise, along the length of the north side, so he's given them specific instructions, there shall be hangings 100 cubits long, with its 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of bronze, and the hooks of the pillars and their bands of silver. You got bronze, you got silver, you got fine linens. Verse 12. And along the width of the court of the west side shall be hangings of 50 cubits, with their 10 pillars and their 10 sockets. The width of the court on the east side shall be 50 cubits. The hangings on one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets, and the other side shall be hangings of 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. So we've seen the north, the south, the east, the west side. Now verse 16, the gate, the front of it. For the gate of the court there shall be a screen 20 cubits long, woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread. Think about that wool that went around. I know that that was gold and that was red, but still you get an idea that, okay, they could have dyed this this thread blue, purple. They didn't just find that out there in the wilderness somewhere. They had to dye it. They had to make these things. Verse 16, and fine woven linen made by a weaver. It shall have 4 pillars and 4 sockets. All the pillars around the court shall have bands of silver. Their hooks shall be of silver, and their sockets of bronze. So I'm picturing blue, purple, scarlet thread on the front. I'm picturing silver, sockets of bronze, silver hooks, sockets of bronze. All these beautiful colors. Verse 18. Then the length of the court shall be 100 cubits, the width 50 throughout, and the height 5 cubits, made of fine woven linen, and its sockets of bronze. All the utensils of the tabernacle for all its service, all its pegs, and all the pegs of the court shall be of bronze. Okay? And we're going to picture that in just, let's do it now.
And thou shalt make the court of the tabernacle. For the south side southward there shall be hangings for the court of fine twined linen of 100 cubits long for one side. And the 20 pillars thereof, and their 20 sockets shall be of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets shall be of silver. And likewise for the north side in length there shall be hangings of 100 cubits long, and his 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the breadth of the court on the west side shall be hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. And the breadth of the court on the east side eastward shall be 50 cubits. The hangings of one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And on the other side shall be hangings 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And for the gate of the court shall be an hanging of 20 cubits, of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen, wrought with needlework. And their pillars shall be 4, and their sockets 4. All the pillars round about the court shall be filleted with silver. Their hooks shall be of silver, and their sockets of brass. The length of the court shall be 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 everywhere, and the height 5 cubits of fine twined linen, and their sockets of brass. All the vessels of the tabernacle in all the service thereof, and all the pins thereof, and all the pins of the court, shall be of brass. And thou shalt command the children of Israel, that they bring thee pure oil olive beaten, for the light, to cause the lamp to burn always. In the tabernacle of the congregation without the veil, which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall order it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever unto their generations on the behalf of the children of Israel.
All right, and what do we learn from the videos? We need updated videos. Those things are old, but they're good. Still good. Gives you a good idea. Verse 20 takes us to the next section, which is care of the lampstand. He read it for us in there, but let's read through it, verses 20 and 21. And you shall command the children of Israel that they bring you pure oil of pressed olives for the light, to cause the lamp to burn continually. In the tabernacle of meeting, outside the veil which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall tend it from evening until morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever to their generations on behalf of the children of Israel. So we also got thrown in there the care of the lampstand. Extremely important. He wanted the lamp to burn continually. And he even said in verse 21, it shall be a statute forever to their generations on behalf of the children of Israel. It is what is commonly known as a menorah. Many of you have seen that today. And so still when we see that menorah, we can think back to, man, it's always been around since God instituted that, since he gave them that, make this lamp. Interesting that in verse 20, in order for this lamp to burn continually, what had to happen? The people had to bring pure oil of pressed olives for the light. Just a quick side note before we move on into chapter 28, and that is this. that if you and I want our hearts to burn continually for God, to be a light continually, then you and I must experience pressure in our lives. Oftentimes that is going to press us or even feel as if it is crushing you and I. Without difficult times, you and I will not produce a light. There must be the times of crushing and the times of calmness also. There must be times where I am pressed underneath the weight of things. I had some challenges this past week. There were 3 of them. 3 big challenges that just, boom, got dumped on me all at once. And I've got to tell you that I spent more time praying this past week than I normally would do. Because of that pressure, because of those things that were pressing down on me. And what I had to do is I had to make sure that I was taking those things to God constantly, because if I didn't, you know what it was going to do? It was going to keep me up at night. It was going to have me stressed out. It was going to keep me from concentrating on things that I needed to concentrate on. So the pressures come. We've got to have that in order to continually burn for the Lord, in order to continually shine. If we do not have that, there's no shine. Verse 21 tells us that he wants Aaron and his sons to tend it from evening till morning. It's got to burn forever, statute forever. It's got to be tended to constantly. Okay, let's move on to chapter 28. We're going to start looking at the clothing for the priests. However, again, we're not going to get very far in here. We'll get into the first couple of sections, first few verses, and then we will shut it down for the day and get to it next time we're together. So now we've seen lots of different, we've seen some of the tabernacle, we've seen the actual tent of meeting, we've seen some of the articles inside. We're not done looking at all of the furniture yet. There's still a couple of items that we'll look at. But what God does is he now turns his attention to the clothing for the priests. And the first thing that we see here, now what we're going to do on our slides, those of you that are taking notes, is we're going to zero in on the clothing for the priests a little bit closer here, Exodus 28. He says in verse 1, "Now take Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister to me as priest." Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Okay, so we see first of all the calling of Aaron and his sons. Now, this is for you and I, and for probably the larger majority of the church. When I say the church, I don't mean just revival. I mean kind of like the church worldwide. For many of us, we see that as the ultimate, the priesthood. They're the ones going to God. They're mediating between God and the people, and between people and God. And these are holy people, and you know, they're representing God and they're representing the people. And we tend to think these are the best people. These are like the most spiritual or the strongest in the church, and this is the most important part of it all. And certainly, many of those things are true. They do represent God to the people. And this is an extremely important part. Without the priests, at this time, at the time that we're reading about, without the priests, there would be no communication between the people and God. This is how God was choosing to communicate with his people. Now, it's not that God couldn't communicate with people. He'd done it lots of times before without priests. But he's at this point, he's establishing a priesthood and saying, listen, this is how I choose from now on to communicate with you generally. He would still communicate with people, individuals, but this is generally. So without the priests, there would be very little communication between them and God. So it is an extremely important part. But you know what else is important? What else is important is that the priests show up with clothes on. Extremely important, right? You do not want your priest showing up in his chonies, yes or no? Right? Can't have that. Other religions at the time did have nakedness involved in their priesthood, in their worship, in their sacrifice, in their religion. So God is about to do something that not everyone practiced at the time. That was not normal to everyone. Verse 2, and you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother for glory and for beauty. Make holy garments. Now what that does not mean is make clothes with holes in them. Okay, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about clothing. The clothing would have been special clothing for the priests. You shall make holy garments for Aaron, your brother, for glory and for beauty. Okay? Now the next thing that he does, and I love this part, and again, this is as far as you and I are going to get today, but the clothing for the priests, not only does he call Aaron and Aaron's sons for the priesthood, but what he also does is he calls the artisans. Verses 3 and 4. So you shall speak to all who are gifted artisans, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister to me as priest. These are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a skillful woven tunic, a turban, and a sash. So they shall make holy garments for Aaron, your brother, and his sons, that he may minister to me as priest. It was important for God, and so it must be important for his people at the time, that their worship not involve, again, nakedness, like many of the religions that were going to be surrounding them. It was important that all of their body was covered. And so, in preparation for that, there is the calling of Aaron and his sons, but that was not the only calling. The next calling that took place, in order for Aaron and his sons to properly minister, there was the calling of the artisans. These things are important. Let me tell you why they're important. The tabernacle, we are told in the book of Hebrews, you and I have already read through it. In the book of Hebrews, we were told that the tabernacle, that Jesus is our greater tabernacle. So what that does is it tells us that the tabernacle that we're reading about was a picture of Jesus. You and I love Jesus, so that's interesting to us. Wow. Not everything in the tabernacle, are we told, is a picture of Jesus. That may be or it may not be. We do not know that. But we know clearly that the tabernacle as a whole was a picture of Jesus. So as God is designing this or telling them how to build it, how to construct it, what he's doing is he's giving them a foreshadow, a picture ahead of time of Jesus. And then as he gets into the priesthood, we are told in Hebrews that Jesus is our great high priest. So in starting to care for the priests, once again, God, in telling Moses this is how to do it, it's with detail, because the priesthood, the priests, were going to also be a foreshadow or a picture of Jesus. And you and I love Jesus, so that is important to us. As he begins to talk about the priests, he's told us a little bit about what they're supposed to do with the lampstand. But the very next thing he does is to clothe them. And the way that he is proposing to take, not proposing, the way that he's telling them to take care of that is in verse 3, so you shall speak to all who are gifted artisans. And notice what he says about the artisans, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom. I do an okay job teaching the Bible. What I do not do, one of the many things that I do not do well, is sow. I do not know how to sew. Does anyone in here know how to sew? Yes? Okay. Some of the guys and girls, right? I saw in first service, Zach Brown raised his hand. He knows how to sew. That made me feel so much better because the guy is so tough. Big old beard, big burly man. It's like if he knows how to sew with his big old hands, you know, I should know how to sew. I don't know how to sew. So what I will do, I've got a pea coat, okay? That's like one of those black, kind of like what you might call a double-breasted big pea coats, big thick pea coat. Like I could wear it to go, you know, lobster fishing in the Atlantic Ocean, you know, or in the Arctic or something, and I would sweat. So why in the world do I have that in Southern California? Good question. That's why you never see me in it. Okay? But one time, I'll give you an example. One time, one of the buttons fell off. Cool little button, had a little anchor on it with some rope. Looks really cool. It popped off. Now, I put that back on myself. But now what happens is when I wear my pea coat occasionally, I put my hands in there, and what happens to my left hand is I stick it in the pocket, and the pockets sit up a little bit higher. I put it in there, my hands immediately do this. As I put it in my pocket, they go, whoop. And the reason they do that is because when I reattached the button, I sewed it not only through the jacket, but through the pocket also. So now I kind of lost some of my pocket space, okay? Keep my switchblade in there or whatever, you know, gun, whatever, and, you know, and so I have a hard time getting at it. But my hands immediately go, burp. Now, why is that? That is because I couldn't care less. Because I don't know how to sew, and I wasn't going to take the time. I needed the jacket, got the buttons falling off, got to put it back on. And then you know what else I do? I don't know how to sew. Those of you that do not know how to sew, you may not know this. There is a proper way to put a button on. And some of the people in here know that. I know that, but I don't know how to do it. So you know what I do? I do this. I grab a bunch of thread, like, right? Get into my wife's sewing kit, you know, get the roll and use up like half of it. Then she's got, you know, she's got to sew something. It's like, where'd all my thread go? Oh, you know? I get too much thread, and then I put the button on. I'll do the same thing with my shirt. Sometimes the shirts will fall off of my, the buttons will fall off of my shirt. Okay, it's like time for a new shirt. No, just put the button back on. Okay? And then sometimes I'm putting the button back on, and if I can't find the correct color thread, it's like, oh, well, I need the buttons. You just grab whatever thread's in there. Okay? Except for pink. I don't do pink. Okay? So what I did with this button is I just grab grab too much thread, and then I put it through the button, you know, there's four little holes on there, and then I just go, you know, I go through the material, and I just go out like 100 times. I don't know if you knew this either, but even when you put a button on, whenever you're sewing, there's supposed to be a special little knot at the end to keep it from coming out. Just wrap it through 100 times, and guess what? It doesn't come out. Now the button's stuck on there. It'll last through the apocalypse. It stays. It looks fine. You would never know. Now, if you ever see me in it, you're going to come stick your hand in there and be like, you know, hurt my fingers. But that's what I do. I do not have that gift, but I want you to see something here in verse 3. What did all that madness mean? It means this in verse 3. So you shall speak to all who are gifted artisans. Where did these gifted artisans get the gift from? Does anybody want to take a wild guess? What do you think, Melissa?
God.
From God. Because in the very next section, what does he say in verse 3? Whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom. Years ago, back in the early 1900s, no, I should say in my early 20s, back in the 1900s, I took an art class, painting class, out at Valley College in San Bernardino. Professor's name was David Rosales. Excellent artist. He's got work all over the place, working all over Riverside. I took a painting class with him. I do not know how to paint. I took one semester. He is an excellent artist, an excellent teacher. I was not a gifted artisan. Now, could I have practiced and gotten better? I believe that I could have. However, I was not what we would call naturally gifted that way. And what we find out here, what we're reminded of, is that in verse 3, that God specifically gifts some people that way. He fills them with the spirit of wisdom. I do not have that as far as artistry is concerned. I can put together a Bible study. Some of you would have an extremely hard time doing that. I can put one together. It's not easy, but I can do it. There are other things that I can do. But what I am not good at is I am not an artist. Maybe one of these days when I retire and I'm an old man, I don't have anything else to do, I can become a gifted artist, but it's not happening right now. I'm not gifted that way. Some of you are gifted that way. You have the ability to paint, to draw, to sketch. Some of your minds work that way. You can conceive and write down a poem or a song. Some of you are skillful when it comes to a particular instrument, a guitar, or one of the brass instruments, or a wind instrument. Some of you are gifted and can sing. And see, what happens is this. What happens is that oftentimes in the church, we see this right here, what I'm doing, as, oh, that's the ultimate. That's the best position in the entire church. And it is extremely important that someone is able to teach the Bible, explain it. But it is also extremely important that we have people that are skillful on instruments or that can sing and that can lead us in worship. So that you have worship and you have the word. But what we oftentimes do is we overlook other gifts. The church does not, as a whole, largely, we do not see art as of very much importance at all. And so oftentimes it's not included in what we're doing in the church. Once in a while you might have somebody that's a gifted athlete. And you might say, you know what? I see that you've got a gift. You're naturally gifted in that sport. And I'll tell you what. Let's plan a sports outreach. And you might find someone in your church they're gifted in basketball. They're just gifted that way. They've got balance. They've got speed. They've got agility. They've got hand-eye coordination. Some of you don't have that, right? Some of you are just like, no, you're like looking at Jordan play the cajon. You're just like, no, what's going on? There's too many body parts moving. I cannot do that all at once, in sync. And occasionally we may see some of those things and we'll say, okay, let's make use of that in the church. One of the things that we rarely ever do is make use of this particular gift, which is artistry, the artisans. Those that are gifted in painting or drawing, in taking what's in their imagination and putting it down on paper or on some other form of a wall or whatever it might be. We rarely do that. We rarely see that as important. But what I'm trying to get you to understand this morning before we close is that God called Aaron to be a priest. But he also called the artisans to make clothes for the priest. Because you cannot have naked priests going up to worship and to sacrifice and to lead the people in meeting God. And so he says here in verse 3, he reveals to them there are gifted artisans. I want you to talk to them. He says, I've filled them with the spirit of wisdom. I have filled them with that gift for that purpose. That is what they are supposed to do. Now, we believe we are considered to be New Testament Christians. Okay? We don't live in the Old Testament. And you might go, well, we don't live in the New Testament either. Yeah, but when I say New Testament Christians, meaning the Old Testament has passed. Obviously still important, that's why we're studying it. But now we're in this era of the New Testament. We're New Testament believers, New Testament church. And we believe, I know that my pastor believes, because I've heard him say it, just heard him say it recently, that each of us as Christians are gifted with something. But oftentimes what happens is, if it doesn't involve being on the stage, then, well, that's like a sub-gift. That's like a, it's subpar. That isn't really, it's not really that important. Which is absolutely not true. We find that I know that some of you are gifted in artwork. I know that. That is from God. And it is going to be at its highest and best use when it is used for God, in His service. Just like I'm able to talk to rooms full of people. I used to be terrified. I can pretty much do it any size group now. I'm able to do that. I'm able to explain the Bible. I can walk into a group of strangers and share the Bible. I do that all the time when I'm conducting funerals. Do that all the time with strangers. And I'm able to walk in and explain to this entire group why they should have hope in Jesus. I have that gift. God's gifted me that way. But if you have a gift that doesn't involve this stage, that's okay. You know that you might actually have the gift of helps. Say, helps, what is that? Well, do you like to help? Do you like to what do you need done? Well, I need, these chairs moved, or I need, let's add a row or take a row, or, could you do me a favor and move that table, or could you, you can grab that vacuum and vacuum, or could you grab a broom, go outside and sweep the ramp, or, could you do some other, fix, the string of lights is kind of falling, could you go up there and fix it? And if your heart, if you go, yeah, I'd love to do that, and you jump up there and you do it, or you vacuum, or you sweep, or you do whatever, you take out the trash, that would be considered the gift of helps. That excites you. You do that, and you think, you know what, I was so excited. My heart is just all stirred up, and I'm excited about serving God. It is very possible that you have the gift of helps, but there may be many other areas. And it may be that you are gifted, well, not maybe, I believe that if you're a Christian, you are gifted in something. There's something that you can do that the rest of us cannot do. Or you can do it in a certain way that the rest of us cannot do. You're gifted, and God has gifted you that way. Now, the difficult part is that you come to church, and we go, oh, you're a natural athlete? Oh, that's cool. But that's not spiritual. And in fact, basketball is not spiritual, or sports is not spiritual, but it can be used as such. It can be used for the glory of God. Or again, maybe it's artwork, or maybe it's poetry, or maybe it's songwriting, or maybe it's whatever, photography, whatever it might be. All of those things can be used for God's glory. And the challenge for you and I, is to find that out. And the way that you find that out is by making yourself available. I want you to think about something. So you shall speak. Look at verse 3 with me. I told you we were going to finish like 20 minutes ago. We're almost there. So you shall speak to all who are gifted artisans. Let me ask you a question. There's no right answer here, right or wrong answer. I don't think. Verse 3. What were those gifted artisans doing before God told Moses, go talk to them? What do you think they were doing? Anybody want to take a wild guess? What do you think those gifted artisans were doing before they found out they were gifted and that God was going to use them for this task? What do you think they were doing? What do you think?
Making clothes.
Probably just making clothes. Yes, Noah. Anybody else? Anybody else? What do you think? What do you think? Artisaning. I like that. I don't know if it's a word, but I like it. We get the point. Artisaning. They were, whatever craft they would normally do, that's what they were doing. And then what happened? Then God came at a specific time and said, Moses, go talk to these people, and they got called out. So for many of us, you may be thinking, well, I don't know what my gift is yet. Well, listen. I heard a quote a long time ago that challenged me in a very good way and helped me to kind of get focused as far as direction for life and what I'm supposed to be doing. It said, I'm going to butcher it, but let me see if I can remember. Don't do what the world needs. Do what makes you come alive. What the world needs is people who have come alive. What is it that excites your heart? What kind of activity is it that you do, whether it be a sport or some form of art or something else? public speaking, whatever it might be, music, whatever it is. What do you do that stirs your heart up, that excites you? It is very possible that that is how you have been gifted. And then what you want to do is make yourself available to God and say, you know what, God, this really excites me, and I'm here if you want to use me. If you're an athlete and you think, man, we should do like a sports outreach, fantastic, let's talk. Or maybe you really like basketball and you're like, hey, let's get everybody together and play basketball. Great, let's talk. So whatever it is that you're doing, do your best to do it well. And then wait, pray. Look for opportunities. A good way to find out what it is that you're gifted in is to come to one of the leaders and say, hey, do you guys need help with anything? And we might say, yeah, I need you to take out the trash. And you might go, I don't think that's my gift. I'm not gifted in taking out the trash. Like, I hate doing that at home. Why would I do it here? You know? But you, through that process, may in fact find out what it is that you're gifted in. Maybe you did not know how exciting it would be to move chairs or to kill all the COVID on the chairs. Maybe you did not know that. But maybe you do it and then it's like, you know what, that was actually, in some weird way, that was fun for some reason. Because you were serving God. So you look for those areas. Hear the people in verse 3, so you shall speak to all who are gifted artisans, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister to me as priest. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a skillfully woven tunic. Not a Chris Amaro tunic, a skillfully woven one. A turban and a sash. So they shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother and his sons, that he may minister to me as priest. That's where we're going to stop for today. But as we close, the point is, God, I want to serve you. How can I do so? How can you use me? God, what have you gifted me in? Because I want to use that for your service. Father, we are